It's 11:45 Eastern. It's time for A Radio's Morning Moment.
You're listening to A Radio.
Thank you for joining us. You're listening to A Radio, and this is the Morning Moment. Follow us on Spreaker.com and click on the like button. You can find us on most social media platforms such as iTunes, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Go to our website, aradio.wordpress.com, for details, where you'll find more content and details on our podcasts and more. I wanted to do this piece because, well, it's quite simple. It's the subject matter that everybody's talking about. Everybody's talking about this. It's Black Lives Matter. This piece actually comes from the Trumpet magazine, and I urge you to look at it. The title is Surrendering to Lawlessness. Now, I urge you to look at the whole piece. In it, it goes into great detail about Black Lives Matter. Now, many of you are aware of the non-stop media campaign in sports to bring what many of us believe is, in fact, a political organisation hell-bent in destroying, if not dismantling, Western society. So I, for one, don't appreciate being told by a multimillionaire that I have to listen to his point of view. It's multimillionaires in all sports that I've got to change my views. And now, even if you don't have a view on that subject, that's not good enough anymore for this Marxist organisation. Let me just say that again. You have to have a view. You can't abstain. And if you do abstain, that's a view as far as they're concerned. And they call you out as being a racist, a bigot, a homophobe, etc., etc. I'm just going to give you little snippets from this piece, but you must read the whole piece. In response to Black Lives Matter tweet, a professional basketball announcer and radio show host made the mistake of posting, quote, "All Lives Matter," unquote, on social media. He was forced out of both jobs for being, quote, unquote, insensitive and disrespecting Black Lives Matter. Let me just interject there. Black Lives Matter is a political organisation. So this guy lost his job for disrespecting a political organisation. There are people out there, and I'll name one of them, Lewis Hamilton, who criticise people for not supporting Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter is a political organisation. Why should any of us support a political organisation? Because somebody says that we should. Here's another piece, and this is even sadder, I think. A professional soccer player's wife made the mistake of criticising looters who were destroying Minneapolis recently. The athlete was made to denounce his wife's social media post and endorse Black Lives Matter. Yet after grovelling before the mob, he was still fired. Still fired. I want to point out this athlete was fired because he didn't go far enough. And he was fired even though he was forced to agree with a political organisation. Every media organisation around the world is promoting a political organisation. We all believe in the concept, but not the political organisation that is a radical Marxist organisation. Why don't people wake up and realise there is a difference between the two? Here's another piece. On June 3, NFL quarterback Drew Brees said, "I will never agree with anybody disrespecting the flag of the United States of America," unquote. The leftists again attacked. other superstar athletes and celebrities seized the opportunity to accuse him of, quote, racism. People sent death threats. Then, as we've tragically come to expect, his, quote, never agree, unquote, statement turned into a meek apology within less than 24 hours, followed by another apology and then another. Please note the content, putting labels on ballparks and logos on sleeves on players. We are being lectured to by commentators, managers in all sporting activities. Of course, any human being would disagree with the police acting in such a manner. Why would they not disagree? But to tell you what you must say and what you must think, this is not acceptable in any country. America has the First Amendment, but we have our Charter of Rights in Canada. It isn't up to anybody to tell anybody how to think, how to speak. And if you don't say something good, or if you don't say something, then you're a racist, you're an anti-this and an anti-that. It's not only a shame, but a disgrace that we are expected to act like leftist sheep. I, for one, will never, never, never support a Marxist anti-free speech organisation, and I would suggest neither should you, and shame on anyone who does. Those of you who support Black Lives Matter without finding out what their philosophy is really about is quite frankly sad, and it's lazy. For anyone to think they have the right to give up someone else's free speech is an utter disgrace. For those of you who believe in free speech, as I do, we want to protect the right of Black Lives Matter to peacefully protest, but not riot. In a free society, such as our Western societies, you have a couple of choices. The first being to leave. In a free society, that's one of the rights we do have. Try that in North Korea. The second is to run for political office. That way, you will see in a democratic setting whether your ideas and policies are what the public want. Finally, I want to leave you with this compliant graphic, one that I think is very sad. A list of corporate organisations who think they can appease Black Lives Matter at your expense, by the way. Maybe, just maybe, you might want to think about this list. It's a rather sobering one. Major corporations that have advertised financial support for groups like Black Lives Matter. Nike, $40 million. Google, $12 million. Amazon, $10 million. Disney, $10 million. Facebook, $10 million. Verizon, $10 million. Cisco, $5 million. Intel, $3 million. Uber, $1 million. YouTube, $1 million. It's just worth noting that YouTube is owned by Google, but there you go. And finally, I'm going to play you a clip from Fox News about someone who stood up to Black Lives Matter. And you listen to this and tell me if this isn't an attack on free speech, because I think that's exactly what this is.
One Republican senator's stance on the Black Lives Matter movement sparking swift and ongoing backlash. Georgia Senator Kelly Loeffler is part owner of the WNBA team, the Atlanta Dream, and spoke out against a plan for players to wear warm-up jerseys with Black Lives Matter and say her name on them, even doubling down by calling BLM a, quote, radical movement that seeks to destroy American principles. Critics now say her stance is a political ploy to gain votes in a tight race to retain her Senate seat. As one Washington Post op-ed puts it, quoting, she betrayed the WNBA using its support of Black Lives Matter to manufacture a straw man for her political pandering. Senator Kelly Loeffler of Georgia joins us now. You're against the WNBA players. Senator Loeffler, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. You're against them wearing Black Lives Matter on their warm-up jerseys because you disagree with Black Lives Matter as a political movement. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, thanks for having me on, Trace. That's right. Look, there's a big difference between the statement, Black Lives Matter. Of course, the life of every African American matters. We have to root out racism where it exists. But the political organization, Black Lives Matters, is very different. It has Marxist foundations, and it's important that people understand what their goals are, because Sports should be about unifying. Look, I grew up playing sports. All of us around the country wanted our sports during the pandemic. They have the power to unite us like nothing else. And in fact, this is the opportunity. But this political platform, Black Lives Matter, is funded through Act Blue, which raises money for liberal organizations and Democrats. It has the objectives of defunding the police, of defunding the military, of destroying the nuclear family. It's anti-Semitic. It promotes violence in our cities, and I think it's very important that Americans know this.
Yeah, you say that we need less politics in sports. The journalist Roxanne Jones wrote this, saying maybe you're not doing exactly that. Quoting here, she's playing to her crowd and likely hopes her race-baiting message will resonate in November when she faces a tough special election among a field of 20 other candidates for her U.S. Senate seat. The Republican senator was appointed back in 2019 by Georgia Governor Brian Kemp, and ironically, or perhaps intentionally, the senator appears guilty of the very thing she's accusing the WNBA of doing, injecting politics into sports. In your response?
It's outrageous. It's absolutely outrageous because guess what? Free speech applies to all Americans, no matter what your political party is. And the threat of being canceled because you don't toe the line with a message, with a political message, is dangerous. That's not what this country is about. I mean, look, China does that when Hong Kong protests, but America doesn't do that when someone speaks out. And I've always supported my players when they have different views. I've never suggested that anyone shouldn't be on the team for having a different view. We all have to come together and welcome. That's what makes us free, is a diversity of views. And so I find it outrageous to suggest that protecting free speech is political. It's for all Americans. And I've received tremendous support from so many saying, thank you for standing up. Thank you for having a backbone for our country.
What do you make of some of your former players coming out against you? I mean, your opponent, clearly, Congressman Doug Collins, says that you're trying to just boost your conservative credentials. But then you have former Dream point guard Laisha Clarendon saying, who now, by the way, is with the New York Liberty, saying that she's kind of ashamed that she went to your house for dinner. Your thoughts on that?
Well, look, Collins is always pandering to the left, to the fake news, to the liberal media. This is not about me. This is not about the team. This is about the right of all Americans to be able to express themselves, whether it's religious speech, free speech, political speech, anything, and not be canceled for it. You know, this is what's happening across the country. You hear small businesses, large businesses saying, we're being boycotted because we spoke out about a candidate or a cause. That's just wrong. That shouldn't happen in America.
Senator Kelly Loeffler, thank you for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you, Trace.
If you can't have a contrary view to somebody else in a free society, there's something very, very wrong. Very, very wrong. And that's my comment. You can find more at aradio.wordpress.com, where you can find links to us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Gab, Spotify, and email. We're on Spotify under the podcast section. Type in Canadian Politics with a twist and you'll find us. We are continuing to reach out to you, so please pass these links on to your friends. Please click on the follow button on Spreaker.com. You can listen to all our morning moments at Spreaker.com/A-Radio. EHRADIO, A-Radio. And please click on the like button. Join us Monday, Wednesday and Friday at 11:45 Eastern, and tell your friends and pass the word. We only tell the truth, not what the mainstream media want you to know.